How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Crypto Clout. Bitcoin currently trading at 10,300. We just witnessed a pretty significant drop down from where it was at the 10,800, and now we're pretty much looking at the free fall and the real, dramatic potential for Bitcoin to continue to go down. But I don't want to distract people from the game plan. Let's not get distracted. Let's not distract ourselves. I guess there's really no point in me talking about Cardano's USD value. I know that it's more important to talk in terms of Satoshis at this point, because essentially talking about what's happening with any given altcoin is essentially indirectly talking about Bitcoin, which is why it's often necessary for us to have these discussions and bring up the topic of what's happening with the current Bitcoin price, and it is very important. Of course, the ticker talking to buy, the fear and greed still it's looking kind of interesting how it's been moving around, but like I said, I want to talk about Cardano. I want to talk about looking into the future, and I guess one of the good vehicles to do something like that would be this article right here, Cardano, the true potential of crypto for the real world, all caps, and this is pretty interesting. It goes on to say, their goal is to ensure each piece of crypto infrastructure they create is so solidly built, millions will one day be able to rely upon it, which I think, is a pretty sexy way to talk about a cryptocurrency. If you ask me, I think when we want to talk about long term, when we want to talk about a growing demand for the technology in the space, which is often, I think, the Achilles heel ultimately of Bitcoin. When it comes down to it, I think many people often do criticize Bitcoin for the fact that, when something bigger and better comes along, well, what happens with technology? We see it getting replaced. MySpace is a perfect example. Social media is sort of the good idea of what we could expect to see. In cryptocurrencies, we don't know where they're going to go from here, but it is an interesting point, and I think that there is a strong argument that can be made, when we want to look at something like Cardano, and of course, very important to point out, of course, that when we finally see cryptocurrencies in demand, the entire financial ecosystem of the world is going to look dramatically different from the way that it is. To be completely frank, right now, there's no need for people to have Bitcoin. If you live in the United States or Europe, or you have a bank near you, you have all of the necessities already checked off. So essentially, cryptocurrency is not for you yet. It's for right now. Developing areas of the world are taking advantage of this, and I think, which is an interesting point to bring up. Of course, we want to think about the work that Cardano has done in certain parts of Africa and all around developing parts of the world that have no real red tape, because that infrastructure of the previous paradigm hadn't necessarily put those roadblocks in the way, which are really serving to limit the progress that we've been seeing happening. Now, as far as it's a slow crawl, and every inch is another step closer in the overall context. We want to talk about like the the news that we've been hearing. All funny business aside happening with the Bitcoin sort of recent things that have been happening. We see the market. You guys can tell exactly what's happening just as well as I can. The manipulation is plainly there. There's obviously some big actors at work right here who are just going to continue to take the money from the weak hands. And of course, one of the main strategies that I've heard was one of the smartest approaches to cryptocurrency is HODL, of course, is one of them. Then on top of that, many others in the accumulation based approach, rather than for some people is not exactly their cup of tea, but at the same time, I mean, I think that it is interesting to look into the future, when we see what's going to be happening, in this next phase of, where Cardano is headed. It is going to be very interesting to see. And I think overall, in comparison to the vast majority of altcoins, we do see stuff like the potential that Cardano has shown for itself really is a light, I think, in the dark of a lot of shit coins at the end of the day. And of course, as things continue to move forward, I mean, there will be a time where the progress, the slow momentum that Cardano has been building up for itself is going to ultimately pay off because they've gone the distance. It's essentially somebody said one time in the comments, I believe, that it's sort of the difference between somebody who works and every single day builds upon the skills and versus somebody who just cuts the line. And sure, they get there, but finally, once Cardano arrives at the place where other cryptos are, it's going to really show the work that Cardano has already put in, as far as how things are going to move quite quickly. And I think that we'll find that there's probably going to eventually be a day where we'll witness many of the other altcoins require to live up to the standard that's being set. When we want to talk about academics, we want to talk about the things that really matter, the science behind it, and the approach that Cardano has already under its belt, which ultimately I think is one of the key components of this underlying theme that I'm trying to illustrate here. Of course, Bitcoin breaking below 10,400, I hope people sell their Bitcoin so that it's cheaper. I mean, it's pretty much slight work at that point. Of course, remember, this video is for entertainment, educational purposes only. Obviously this is not financial advice or anything like that. Remember, I'm not your dad. Only here to give you my opinion on this space. I mean, what else do you expect for free content on YouTube? But I mean, it is interesting. In the second time within the week, BTC is seen crashing below the 10.5K region again early on into the day. The top cryptocurrency was believed to have a revival spirit ahead of it. Recently announces opening a backed custody BTC futures as the price moved aggressively towards the 11K point, which many people were. We were basically. It's 72 hours ago, almost to the minute. We've all known that this date specifically right here. Many commentators have been commenting on this juncture, and I think that we are certainly witnessing the natural consequences of what's been happening overall. Many of these things we've been pointing out. Just in the time of this content, we've already this video. We've already seen most of the $10,270 now. Hundreds of dollars falling. So as it might appear that the crypto space is in free fall, I think that it's important now above all to think about put ourselves in the shoes that we were when we were earlier in the summer. I would say, because it's almost funny, because when Bitcoin's down to $3,000, nobody's buying it because it's not worth anything. But then when it is worth something, people like to spend $1,000 for 0.1. And when in fact they could have bought almost half a Bitcoin for that much money. In comparison, with patience is really everything. Timing, and measured moves and all these other things. So ultimately, I think that Cardano does sort of represent almost an allegory for what we can expect to see. As far as the space. And I think the smartest. Smartest and best and brightest people in the world have their eyes on cryptocurrency. So ultimately not surprised things didn't go to the moon as quickly as it was expected. But that's just crypto for you. IOHK CEO Charles Hopkinson says next phase of Cardano testnet to launch in September. So we have that to look forward to as well. But it will be interesting to see how these things play out, of course. So, that's all for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.